All right, everybody, welcome to the Purple Friday Show, episode 210. All of us are back today. Trey was out last week because of traffic, trying to drive in that Jersey, Philly traffic.
Sound bad.
It's yeah,
Barbecue.
yeah, it's especially in the winter. I'm pretty sure it can't be fun for anybody. But Ravens had an off week, chilling. No one went to Cancun. No one got on a yacht or anything. I know people were worried because they saw the Odell stuff come out. What was that, 2 weeks ago?
Spirit of
And he had
Baltimore.
ridden out the spirit of Baltimore. Everybody was like, no, don't get on the boat. He invited the whole offense to get in. I don't know when. They said sometime during the playoffs. They didn't say when that was going to happen. But, for people that don't know, Spirit of Baltimore is more like it's a floating entertainment venue. It's
Like a
not
floating
really.
banquet boat
Yeah,
type.
it's like
Yeah.
they
It's
got
not a
games.
yacht.
Yeah,
Weddings, stuff like that.
it's
It's not a
not
yacht.
like
Not a catamaran. We're
they
good.
weren't up there with their Tims on, their shirts off. 'Cause I don't even think they did either went out of the country or they went like Miami or somewhere when Odell did that when he was in New York. I can't remember where
I think that was
that
Miami.
was.
That
Was it
was a Miami
Miami?
trip.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, he didn't do that. He was also on Marlon's pod, I think, a couple days ago,
Mm-hmm.
and they had talked about the Giants.
Yeah, about the Miami
yacht
trip.
photo. So I don't think that's going to hurt us. I don't think it's going to affect us. I think Odell learned his lesson. No more boats, at least no more yachts, no more small yachts and stuff for these kind of trips. But um, I mean, we'll get right to it. I guess the Super Wild Card weekend results. I guess we'll start with the Saturday game. So the Browns lose to the Texans, 45-14. CJ Stroud put on a show, man. CJ Stroud put on a show. That boy's bad. That boy's bad. Coming off, especially, he had been hurt for a little while and comes back, and I think they won the division, and they come out against probably arguably the other best defense in the NFL other than the Ravens.
Mm-hmm.
And, I think, Travis, you mentioned this last week that the Browns defense does not travel well. It did not in this game. CJ Stroud moved well within the pocket. I mean, he was throwing the ball over the field, the tight ends. Everybody was catching the football. But I think the main part of it was the Flacco being Flacco. Right after halftime, Flacco, the pumpkin, the chariot turned into a pumpkin after halftime. And I was like, there we go. There it is. There's prime Flacco right there. So it was funny. I mean, we saw all the Browns play, like fans, the Flacco fever. They were doing vignettes and exposés and everything about Joe Flacco. And, it's even his dad apparently saying, like, yeah, it was nice playing in Baltimore, but these Cleveland fans are something else. And this is different in Cleveland. I was like, you can talk all you want, man. You're out of the playoffs now. Done. Go back, sit on the couch, man. It's nap time. Like, I was sick and tired of all the Flacco stuff. Like, look, I'm almost 39. Come on, I know what it is. No, it hurts to get out of bed sometimes. Like, I roll out of bed and my elbows hurting, my knees hurting, my foot's hurting for some reason.
Mm-hmm.
If I sleep the wrong way, my neck's hurting for like 2 days. Like, I mean, come on. Like, I knew what it was. We all knew it was going to happen at some point, right? We all knew the bottom was going to fall out. Yeah, Browns be Browning, man. I mean, that's pretty much all I got to say about that in the game. Great for the Texans though. Definitely ahead of schedule, moving to the divisional playoff round, beating a really good defense. It doesn't get any easier for them though because they got to play the Ravens in Baltimore. And I was looking at the stats for CJ Stroud. His passer rating drops significantly when he plays on grass. Significantly. And the Ravens have the best, is it QBRs against defenses? Like they turn mostly whatever your QBR rating was over the course of the season, the Ravens make you one of the worst quarterbacks during that game that you're playing against them. He's not going to be an easy out because this is definitely different from week one, CJ Stroud. So I think the Ravens will take it. But keeping on the Browns and the Texans, it's poetic. The scriptwriters couldn't write this any better, right? The team that trades their star quarterback to the Browns end up beating the Browns in the playoffs, and they get one more first round pick out of this. So who knows what that's going to turn out to be? It's already been Will Anderson. We already got C.J. Stroud. Who knows what's next to add to this, saga that is Watson, Browns, Texans. But good win for the Texans.
Yeah, that was a great win for the Texans. I mean, C.J. Stroud to come out and his first of all, get his team to the playoffs. Even with him being down, like he was that successful in the regular season where, dropping a couple of games, due to injury wasn't really a factor. They still ended up making it. Excuse me. And then on top of that, to perform the way he performed, I mean, for that to be your first playoff game against a really, really solid defense is just a lot to say. Lamar was joking in the presser yesterday. They asked him about CJ. He was like, his playoff, performance. They asked him about the first game. He said he looked a lot better than I did in my first playoff game. So, I mean, CJ, it's not your typical rookie quarterback. That guy was put in the perfect situation. He has good leaders, good coaching on that side of the ball, and he's going to be scary good. I mean, I wish he was in the NFC. He's not in the AFC North, luckily, but I wish he was a little bit further away because that boy's going to be special in the years to come. But yeah, they played a really solid game. The fact that a couple of their key guys went down, like Tank Dell not being a part of that team anymore, being injured and being on the sideline, not being able to contribute. There was no fall off since he's been gone. I mean, they've just pretty much been pretty solid. Everybody, they got weapons. Nico Collins is just animal out here. Like he's been coming on strong as far as his production in this back half of the season. Like he's been looking crazy. Like Tank Dell went down, he's just doing more. He's just taking up both roles at that point. So he's been looking phenomenal. So he's going to be obviously something for us to look at. And the Browns could do anything with him. And like just impressed. Even like Devin Singletary, the fact that he's kind of like rejuvenated his game. I mean, he didn't look terrible when he was with the Bills, but he went to the Texans and he's been looking great. I mean, for the most part, ever since he's been there. And he just looks like a first 1-2 year back over there, the way he's been running. So they got it going on over there. And their defense is, they kind of survive off of turning the ball over, and they tackle well on that side of the ball. So, the defense is no slouch either. So just overall a good balanced team. The Browns just weren't ready in that situation, that away game. Flacco, 39 years old, very impressive run he went on. Very impressive run. He was supported by a really, really good defense. But like you were saying earlier, that defense just happens, and they don't really travel well at all. The offense just kind of sputtered. Very inconsistent plays from their receivers. Amari Cooper was kind of hurt, banged up the whole game. He was kind of playing through it, and you can kind of see the difference. And Njoku, 1 week he'll be a dog, the next week he'll be a dog, but he'll drop the ball like 3 or 4 times. So like whole lot of inconsistency on offense. And Flacco, like I said, he very good run, but when you get that age, 39, 40 years old, when you first start out your career, the game slows down for you. That game speeds right back up when you start getting in that back end. And those guys were flying around. He was that second pick 6 he threw. Flacco didn't even see the guy.
No.
didn't even see him. The guy was just that fast to the ball, broke on it to the house. But you can't be mad at him. I mean, the Cleveland Browns, they went further than what anybody thought they were going to go without Deshaun Watson. So that's still a credit to Joe Flacco. I'm sure nobody's in that locker room faulting him for, them getting bounced, because they probably shouldn't have been there in the first place. But yeah, good game for the Texans. And they're on the radar, man. It ain't gonna be no slouch playing against them. That they're a formidable team. This is not the week 1 Texans we played. And if you remember that game, I mean, we won that game, pretty solid. I think they had like 9 points, but it wasn't as far apart as what the score indicated from that week 1 game. I went to that game and it wasn't all that close. I mean, it wasn't all that far apart. It was a lot closer than what you thought. So yeah, definitely a lot to look into. So yeah, they're them, but we'll see what happens when they're up against a top 2 defense.
Man, the Texans. We said that the Browns defense doesn't travel well, but I for sure thought they would travel well and be up for this game. I had this game completely wrong. I thought it would be a close game, and then Joe would pull it out so we could have the matchup we really wanted. Um, Man, shout out to CJ Stroud. I mean, he played a phenomenal game. I think it was like one late incompletion kept him from having a perfect passer rating. Um, I mean, it was just an awesome game. The Browns couldn't cover to save their lives. I mean, they gave up big play after big play after big play. Right. Yeah. There was nothing they can do. Myles Garrett was a no-show throughout the game. I don't know where he was at. I think the only defender that came to play was what's his name, Jeremiah Owansu. Yeah. So I think he was the only player that played with effort and acted like they wanted to win the game. So it seems like Cleveland just didn't show up. Outside of that, Joe's gonna be Joe. And, when somebody shows you who they are, you should believe them. And Joe has shown us who he is year after year outside of those few playoff runs. I mean, he's gonna throw the ball up and somebody's gonna end up with it, whether it's the offense or defense. So we saw that in this game. And I think, the game was competitive until those 2 interception returns. And I think Cleveland kind of gave up after that. But the Texans, I mean, they're solid offensively. I mean, I don't look at the Texans as a team with a whole bunch of weapons, right now. I mean, Dalton Schultz is a solid tight end. Nico Collins is a star in the making. But outside of that, I don't see too many threats. I think they just have a quarterback on the verge of becoming elite.
Yeah.
Defensively, they're a solid team. I mean, they're coached up well. I don't see a bunch of dogs, but I see a tough defense. And they aren't that same Texans team, that we played in week 1. They're a lot more confident. They're a lot more sure of who they are. And they're hot. They're hot right now. So, I mean, the Browns, I think the theme as we talk about these games is that, it's all about who shows up to play. And that's what showed over the wild card weekend. But, great game. Hats off to the Texans. Joe, go be a family man. But yeah, that's all I gotta say.
Yeah, I mean, look, it was back-to-back pick sixes. Like, it was bad. Like that killed any chance you had as a Browns offense. Like, we're gonna do anything, even the defense killed it. That was it. Once that happened, it was a wrap. Once that happened, it was a wrap. So I mean, it was again, CJ Stroud, first his rookie season getting to the divisional playoff. It's I mean, look, the Browns beat them pretty decisively that first time they met up, but again, that was what Case Keenum, I think, was the quarterback at that time, and I just don't think they were ready. They weren't ready for CJ Stroud at that time. So, but yeah, shout out to the Texans, man. The home game. I guess they're the real team in Texas. We're not gonna mention the Dallas Cowboys. They're the real team in Texas as of right now. Yeah, so that was a good win for them. The other Saturday game we had was that Dolphins Chiefs. This wasn't close. I mean, the what was it? The minus 27 degrees, wind chill. Tua just arm looked dead. Like, I mean, there was I think he was an interception that he had to throw. He threw an interception, I think, and a Chiefs player came back. Like, it came back to it. Like we've been talking about for years. Tua doesn't have the arm strength, and in the wind that they were throwing in, he had to throw it. That thing just died, and Tariq tried to come back to it, couldn't make a play on it. Chiefs defense did what they wanted. I mean, it wasn't close. Mahomes, I think I said it in the last show. Mahomes, all he had to do was make a few plays. He made a few plays, especially scrambling to get the first downs and stuff like that. He even cracked his helmet at one point. It was so I've never seen that before. It was that cold. It was that cold that even the helmets, I guess, got to their breaking point. And just because I think even Pacheco had an incident too where he got, I think he was being tackled, and a guy's helmet, like Dolphins helmet, hit him in the back, and then part of that came off. Like players, I'm pretty sure everything just felt an extra 10 pounds, like the shoulder pads, everything, because it was just frozen solid.
Right.
And so, I mean, like, it was a game the Dolphins weren't made for. We already know the stat about Tua not playing well in games under 55 degrees. It clearly showed. I think we have to really start really like looking at the Dolphins. Like, can you really consider them a contender at this point when how bad they play in December and January? Like, they don't play well in the winter months. When you're playing the AFC East, the Jets are bad now, and the Patriots are bad, but you would think maybe at some point they're going to get back to somewhat of normalcy, and you may have to go play them in competitive football games in December and January, in divisional games, maybe even in the playoffs. And if you're in the AFC, playing the Chiefs, playing Baltimore, playing Buffalo, like, they got to find some way to get these guys ready to play in the cold. They weren't ready. I mean, the Chiefs were playing in the cold too, but they made the plays. Kelsey made some plays over the middle. Pacheco made some plays on the ground. The defense, again, was flying around. They were hitting and everything. Like, it just looked like it was a point where it was one of those attrition things. Like, it got so cold out there. I think they just got tired of being on the field. They were just waiting for it to be over, the Dolphins, after a while. Like, that's what it kind of felt like. And look, to be honest, I wouldn't be able to be out there either. I don't care if I'm a fan or not. Like, minus 27 degrees, minus 27. That's like my big toe might fall off kind of thing. Like, I would have to check my cleats like every time I come off the field just to make sure I don't have frostbite like on any of my like fingers or my toes, because like the heated benches or the fans, that mean when it's minus 27 degrees, that will mean nothing. Me and my neighbor were talking about yesterday. When you're cold to your bones, I don't care how much heater you got around you. When that cold gets into your bones, you are just cold. But again, I think, Travis, you and I said this, like, the Chiefs in the playoffs are a different team. Mahomes, look, the receivers haven't been playing well all year. They did make some plays here and there in the game, but Mahomes made enough of plays on his own to get them to win. And you still have to worry about the Chiefs, man. They're a different team in the playoffs. They know how to navigate this. They know the games get shorter. The possessions, you only get a few, in these games. And if they can beat anybody at minus 27 degree weather, imagine how they're going to play next week when it's a little bit warmer. It's going to be like 20 degrees, 30 degrees. It's going to feel like springtime to them compared to last week. So, but yeah, I think it's for the Dolphins on their side. It didn't seem like they leaned on Achane a lot. I think he was out there. Raheem Mostert got stopped a little bit, but Achane, I think, had like 10 carries for he wasn't really getting much anything. But I think that they stopped trying after a while too. They stopped trying to run the football. But that's a part, I think, of the game for the Dolphins, is that everything's a speed about them. But when you play in the winter months, you got to be physical. You got to out physical the other guy in these kind of games. And I think it's time that the Dolphins kind of maybe address that a little bit. And look, Tua may not be. I think it's time for Tua's not the guy for y'all. He's just not. It's not going to get you to that next level. If you saw how he played against the Kansas City Chiefs, and at the end of the day, I mean, some Dolphin fans are complaining about playing in the game. Like, well, if y'all handle business, you've been playing in Miami right now instead of playing in Kansas City. So I mean, we can cry all you want, but yeah, the Chiefs win. Move on to the next round. They're gonna be dangerous. They do got to play. Someone's gonna play his first away game in his playoff history this coming weekend, which is crazy. That this is the first time he's playing an away game. But good win for the Chiefs.
Yeah, I think the best thing the Chiefs got going for them is that their defense is playing a lot better, and a lot more consistently better, I would say. But let's keep it a bean. This game was more about the Dolphins. They're still recovering from that ass whooping we put on them I think they learned a lot about themselves when they played the Ravens in that game to allow us to put up what we put up 56 points.
Yeah.
To allow us to put up 56 points on them. They limped into that playoff game. Everyone came back. Waddle came back. Mostert came back. They look horrible. They look just as bad against the Patriots. I'm sorry, the Patriots against the Chiefs than they looked against us. They look just as bad. It's just that we put the burner, like we killed them. If they were playing us again, we probably would have put up more points in that game. To be honest, we took their souls in that game, man. Like they had nothing. And then it's a game where we're talking about below zero temperatures, and they've never even won a game like that under 40, 50 degrees. Come on, man. Like that they were done before they walked in there. The Chiefs really, honestly, like I still wasn't that impressed. Like they were playing Miami, good team, obviously, but like I still wasn't even impressed with what they were doing. They didn't do anything to me that made me want to fear them, if we have to see them in the next round, not to look forward, but whatever the case may be. Like they haven't showed me anything that tells me that I feel better about them in the playoffs outside of them just always being, going to the Super Bowl or whatever the case may be. But outside of the experience, I didn't see anything even in them dominating the Dolphins, especially after we played the Dolphins and did what we did. But we still going to respect it just because it's Patrick Mahomes, and obviously, that's the fair thing to do. But yeah, that Dolphins team, they were just done up. I mean, this was the same team minus Chubb, is out, a couple defenders, but this is pretty much the same team that was putting up 70 points against the Denver Broncos earlier. If it's Tua, I don't know. It sounds like the coaching staff, the coaches and the GM, it sounded like they kind of gave him a vote of confidence after that game and saying that he's going to be the guy going forward. So it sounds like they want to roll with him. I mean, it could be lip service just to get the media off their back, because they did say also we like to handle those things internally. So like it was kind of like a double-edged sword type thing. But yeah, we'll see what they do. But yeah, I think that playoff game was more so just about Miami, just walking into that playoff game completely unprepared. Even having two starters back in the game and it making no difference in how they played. And you can tell the cold was affecting them. I mean, if you know that, like these warm weather teams, like they just don't travel well to the cold. East Coast always travels way better to the West Coast than the latter. You see it all the time. I mean, you bring a West Coast team over here in those type of conditions, like it's almost over before the game starts. But Miami, especially, the fact that they can't get over that hump is crazy. And you would think that they would show up a little bit more in the playoff game, but they just didn't look good. I mean, where did the speed go? Where did the stuff they were known for? Where did it all go? I mean, Tariq got his score, but like for the most part, he wasn't really doing too much in that game. Like you said, Achane, this guy, the fastest guy in the league probably, and he outside of Tariq, and he couldn't get nothing going, even to the outside. So the Chiefs defense either look that good, or I think the Dolphins have just regressed that much, and I think they just regressed that much because the same thing happened to them last week, but worse.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's my take.
So, Trey, you took my whole take. That I totally agree. The Dolphins came in that game ready to lose. Once again, the theme of the weekend: teams not coming ready to play or ready for the caliber of football you have to play in order to win in the playoffs. I'm trying to understand, Miami. You have two top tier running backs. And when I say top tier, I'm just saying like above average, right? One averaging 8 yards a carry, one averaging like 5 yards a carry, both over or close to 1,000 yards rushing on the season. You're a top 3 running team. You know you're coming from warm weather into historically low temperatures. You throw the ball 39 times and run it 18 times. What the hell are you doing? You know what I mean? You come in with the strategy to not win the game. You come in to play this warm weather game with a noodle arm quarterback. I don't understand Mike McDaniel's coaching decisions. That's the first part. Coaching, play calling, the strategy was awful. You didn't come to win that game. You came to prove that you're smarter than everybody. The players, you can see it from jump. They did not have it in them. Tyreek Hill got his touchdown, but I know we saw that highlight of my man getting tossed up by the cornerback.
Mm-hmm.
Come on. How often do we see that happen to Tyreek Hill? They weren't there. They weren't inspired. I could feel like even with it being like a 2-score game, the players were defeated. They weren't locked in. Weren't they playing 2-hand touch out there?
They didn't want to tackle nobody. It hurt. It looked like it hurt to tackle.
Yeah, we saw Patrick Mahomes, running the ball, and I saw a linebacker just 2-hand touch him. We're playing flag football out there. So on the Miami side, it's like you really came to lose. You didn't come to win this game. The temperatures, granted, they probably shouldn't have been playing, but they didn't arrive at the game ready to play to win it. Chiefs, on the other hand, I've been saying, like, if you want to win, put the ball in Pacheco's hands. 24 carries, I think, 90-something yards.
Mm-hmm.
Solid game. They did what had to be done. I mean, they threw the ball 41 times, but they didn't throw the ball. They weren't throwing the ball deep a bunch. They were doing what they had to do to convert first downs. They played a solid game and did what they had to do to win. Defensively, they just punked the Dolphins. They straight up punked them. Tua was looking like Zach Wilson. They held Tyreek in check. They held Waddle in check. Waddle at one point, my wife was like, why is Waddle waddling? You know what I mean? He wasn't really out there in full go. So the Chiefs defense, they were very impressive. But overall, I wasn't really impressed with either team. I mean, I don't fear them. But I think Andy Reid, the Chiefs, they did what they had to do. They came there to win. And I want to see what they look like going forward. But, I think this game was more about the Dolphins than it was the Chiefs. And the Dolphins just lacking mental toughness, lacking proper strategy, and just not being created for the playoffs.
Yeah, we said this before when the Dolphins played the Ravens, is that, with teams like this that are built on speed, the one thing you do to beat them is be physical. With it being minus 27 degrees and the Chiefs just hitting them constantly, you saw it by the time halftime came around. They were like, the Dolphins are they just wanted to go home. They ain't want to be out there no more. They were like, nah, they don't want any of this anymore. Like you said, like Mostert and Achane were like non-existent in the second quarter, and they only was at 26-7, so it wasn't like it wasn't a huge blowout. They were in the game for most of it. It was just the point where they just like after Tua just kind of his arm started to die, and look, you guys know playing in the cold like that. At some point, everything gets stiff. It's just like your arms are real hard to move, the legs are real hard to move. And you consider the amount of the time possession the Chiefs were having. I think they had 35 minutes to the Dolphins, like 25 minutes or something like that. So that's an extra 10 minutes or so. The offense is sitting on the sideline in that cold, not moving. And when you're sitting in the cold, not moving around, like it's going to be really hard to get your body to keep going, to keep moving in that kind of weather. So like that probably played a factor as well. They also did mention 15 fans apparently got treated for hypothermia during the game. I think it was the fans that had their shirts off. There was a couple of them they showed on TV. I'm pretty sure it was them, trying to show that they're tough, but hypothermia nothing to play around with. But they're not going to have that advantage, when they go next week. So we'll see. They said the Chiefs are still Mahomes. They have Mahomes. Rashid Rice showed up. I think he had 130 yards receiving. Kelsey made a few plays. He was 7 catches for 71, but I think any good defensive coordinator probably knows that if they just take away Kelsey, we'll live with the fact if Rice goes off for another 150, sure, fine, we'll let that beat us, but we're not gonna let that Kelsey beat us. Well, they know next week, keep that dial down. We're gonna make Rashid Rice beat us next week. So, yeah. Next game after that on Sunday, first game was the Packers and Cowboys. So, I don't think. I mean, as it's been said all week. I think I said on the show last week that I would not be surprised if the Packers won this game for the simple fact that they're a young team. The Cowboys don't really know anything about them, and they're kind of playing with house money at this point. I did not think it was going to be this bad. It was like, wasn't it like 45-7 at like with 6 minutes to go in the game or something like that? When the first interception, I was like, Jair Alexander just made a great play. That was a great play. Like they were saying he ran the route. He ran the route for Brandon Cooks. Like he knew the route. Like he just ran the route for him. And Brandon Cooks being a shorter wide receiver and Jair Alexander being, I think, over 6 foot was just like, all right, he's gonna throw. And he threw it in a bad spot. He threw it outside, and Jair gets it. They score a touchdown off of that, and then that terrible pick six. I mean, he read that. I think Rex Ryan was on Get Up the next morning on Monday morning, and basically said when he made a great point. He was saying that when you're coaching a team, especially getting to the playoffs, you got to change tendencies every few weeks. You can't do the same thing every week because eventually defense will key on it. Hey, they're throwing to this guy on this down, or this is the area of the field they're going to run this play. They ran that triple slant play or whatever, and the defensive player sat there because he knew it was coming to him. He knew it was coming right there. Of course, Dak throws it. He picks that thing all the way to a pick six to the house. They, after a while, I don't know if you guys saw it on Fox with Jimmy Johnson. Jimmy Johnson was like going off.
Yeah,
they thought he was kind of playing around. Jimmy Johnson, you can see in his eyes, like he was like, I have never, like we've seen the Cowboys lose some bad games, some tight, close games before, right? We've never seen them get blown out like this at home. They had a 16-game winning streak at home. 16-game winning streak. They showed video of the fans running into the stadium to get to their seats. Which I also don't understand because they're assigned seats. So why are you running to your seat? It's going to be there. I never understood that. But they show them running into the stadium. But then by the third quarter, half the stadium's empty because they're all leaving. Like that was one of the – Michael Irvin was – I don't know. He was in Miami somewhere on a balcony. He was going off. You got to put your championship on the table. Like he was pissed off. Anybody that's played for the Cowboys was like, that was the worst loss in Cowboys history. Like that goes down as the worst loss in Cowboys history. I don't know how you keep Mike McCarthy at this point. I don't know how you keep Dak at this point, to be honest with you. He's shown you what he is now. Like you can play. He's the black Tony Romo. Tony Romo did the same thing in Dallas. He was great in the regular season, but come postseason, just couldn't cut it. But I'm not going to take any credit away from the Packers, man. Matt LaFleur had those boys ready to play. They came into a hostile environment in Dallas, loud stadium, and I'll say this: Jordan Love looked unfazed by all of it. Like they showed when they were showing like him making the throws, he looked like prime Aaron Rodgers out there throwing the back foot. Like I was like, do they have another one again? Come on, man! They've gone like 20 years of having MVP caliber quarterback play. And here comes Jordan Love out of nowhere, who honestly doesn't have the weapons that he needs yet. And they were able to put those kind of points on the Cowboys. I mean, they were running circles around him. The defense was out of sorts. They ran the ball extremely well. Aaron Jones had 3 touchdowns, which I'm seriously mad at because I had him on my fantasy team. He did nothing all year, and then he wants to go off in the wild card game for 3 touchdowns. I would have had like 40 points from him. But I digress. No, yeah, look, I don't think I think the Packers definitely shocked the world when they beat the Cowboys. I don't think they have the weapons to get that far that they need to get, but they're on the right track. And if they had any questions about Jordan Love, I think they got answered. Again in that game, in an away game in Dallas. Yeah, so all the credit for Matt LaFleur, but yeah, the Cowboys. It may be time to blow it all up. To be honest with you, it's time. They can't keep this together. They just can't.
Yeah, that was I enjoyed that. I enjoyed that loss. I mean, it's just every year. And then some years, they get beat and then, it's over. But this was different. Like to get stomped out like that when you've had this phenomenal home record and the favorite that you were in this game to blow it at home at that, like you didn't even have to go to Green Bay and endure any elements. You were right there on your home turf indoors in Texas, and you got your doors blown off. Like it's just crazy. You can't make this up. Yeah, all the credit really to Green Bay. I mean, they look unstoppable. I mean, they don't have a whole bunch of superstar playmakers on their team, but they have enough. Like Aaron Jones is him when he's healthy, and he looked super healthy in that game, and he was running all over the Cowboys. Dobbs, all of those guys over there stepping up, making plays when they need them, and Jordan Love, like a lot of quarterbacks in the league, if you give him all day to throw, they're going to pick you apart. There was no pressure on Jordan Love in that game. I don't know where the defensive line went. I don't know if they just, I don't know what it was, but it was getting Micah Parsons out of there. It was just no pressure. He was just kind of just sitting back. That offensive line played incredible. So all the credit to them. Two things I noticed in that game. Well, one thing for sure, Dak Prescott and CeeDee Lamb. CeeDee Lamb has been looking outstanding pretty much the entire game. I mean, sorry, the entire season. But the fact that they had this disconnect in that game, like from the first quarter on, it was just very weird. Like, I don't know what happened before that game started, but they could not get it together. So I think they have to reevaluate and figure out what the heck is going on with that. But yeah, they just didn't show up. But it's nothing that we didn't expect. So shout out to Jordan Love, man. He did his thing.
Yeah. Hey, I'm not even gonna lie. I think the Packers got some weapons. I'm not even gonna lie because the route running I saw from what was it Romeo Dubs,
Dobbs, yeah. Oh yeah, he was killing them out there.
Man, the way he kind of like stuck his foot in the grass on those routes. I mean, he had the Cowboys DB spinning. Man, this was the most surprising one and probably my most frustrating one due to parlays. Um, but man, I should have predicted this. The Cowboys are going to cowboy. That's a wild statement. The Cowboys are just going to lose in the playoffs. That's what they're known for these days, man. America's team. They're just like America. They're not great. I think the thing that was like real surprising was that, like you all said, the disconnect between CeeDee Lamb and Dak Prescott. It almost seemed like they were like, it kind of feels like we saw CeeDee Lamb and Dak be what everybody thought AJ Brown and Jalen Hurts were going through. Like there was like some type of tension. CeeDee Lamb was dropping balls that he normally catches. They just could not get in sync. Dallas could not get in sync until late when they're trying to come back in the game. It was just rough to watch, and it was hard to pinpoint. It was hard to pinpoint one thing that was going wrong. It seemed like there was just a collective effort of missed opportunities for the Cowboys, and then the Packers just capitalizing on it. Like the Packers could do honestly whatever they wanted. And I know we were talking about CJ Stroud almost having a perfect QB rating. I mean, Jordan Love, he was an incompletion. I think they almost had the same stats for both games. He almost had a perfect quarterback rating. He threw 3 touchdowns, no picks. They were able to run the ball on the Cowboys. I don't think Micah Parsons was much of a factor. It was just complete dominance. The secondary was shown to not be great. And the Packers are young. These are some young receivers they have, but they play hard, they run routes, and they made plays. So I think this is more about the Packers than the Cowboys, and maybe we should have gave the Packers a little bit more of a fighting shot because they were hot coming into the playoffs. They had won 6 of 8, right? to come to make the
Yeah.
playoffs. So they were clicking, they were gelling, and like I said, the Cowboys are going to cowboy. They weren't able to put anything together, but I do think they're probably going to blow that up because different years, same result can only happen so much, especially with Jerry Jones as your owner. So I'll be surprised if they have the same coach next year and that there aren't major changes made. But shout out to Jordan Love. Hey, let's see if he can keep this up because he's looking like Aaron Rodgers looked after he took over the Packers when he had his run early in his career. So great job.
Yeah, it was wild looking at Mike. Say it again. Go ahead.
I was who would they have to play this week? Detroit?
I think they played
the 49ers.
Yeah.
They were the 7th seed, so
Niners.
they played the Niners. Yeah. Yeah, San Fran. That's how, I don't think it's going to go too much farther than this. Yeah, they beat the Niners. I'm like, look, NFC
you never know.
playoffs, man.
The
Playoffs.
playoffs have been crazy so far.
You never know.
Yeah, seeing Mike McCarthy kind of having a chat with CeeDee Lamb in the middle of the game was kind of wild too. It was just like everyone's like, "What's going on with CeeDee, man?" Like you picked the wrong day to just have an off day, and it was just even Dak was like talking to him. I don't know where CeeDee was, like headspace was in that game. I think it's time we got to stop comparing Micah Parsons to Lawrence Taylor. Stop right now. Lawrence Taylor would never play like that in a playoff game. Never. No. Micah Parsons, too many times now lately, the last couple of years, he's been disappearing from games like this. He starts off great in the beginning of the season, and then by around this time of year, he starts having these games where he just goes missing. This is a game where they needed him to make a play. Like when you have TJ Watt with the Steelers and you got Myles Garrett, like this is what he's supposed to be built for. He's really built to – this is why they have him for these kind of games, to wreck the game and put it back in their favor. Because like you said, like it was – he had all day to throw. He had no pressure. He was just sitting there playing pitch and catch like he was in the backyard. You just like it was nothing. So, I mean, yeah, I think it's look, Dak's getting $60 million next year. They're like $7 million under or some crazy number over the cap, like they're $20 million over the cap, something crazy like that. So they got to do some contract restructuring. They're going to have to trade some guys, release some guys. It's just a shame. I think they said had 9 All-Pros on that team. Like 3 of the offensive linemen are All-Pros. CeeDee Lamb, I think, was an All-Pro this year. The Deron Bland made All-Pro team this year. Like the Packers had none. I think they had the punter may have been the punter. The special teams guy was the All-Pro. Nobody else as a skill position was All-Pro in the Packers, and they did that to the Cowboys. They should be ashamed of themselves. Ashamed. But sometimes it's that they were talking about it on the radio and some, in Dallas and some other stations too. The pressure of the past, sometimes it just haunts the Cowboys, right? It just haunts them. Like these guys, Michael Irvin, he said when he came in and you had Drew Pearson and you had Roger Staubach and Landry and them, and they knew like those guys that they won championships, and Michael and Irvin and Troy knew, hey, we got to put our championships out there. But it's like since that's happened, that hasn't been the case. But I also think that's part of it is because of Jerry Jones' meddling involvement, it's really hard to know as a player who to listen to. Do I listen to Mike McCarthy or listen to Jerry Jones? The guy who signs my checks, because he's down here half the time. He's always down here. He's in the locker room. He's talking to players, all this other stuff. Jerry's going to have to give up some control if he wants this to be a real football team. Because it's clearly Mike is talking to him and it's going in one ear, out the other. They're not listening to him at all. And when Dan Quinn leaves, I'm pretty sure he's going to get a job. I think he probably wants to leave. I think he just doesn't want to be there anymore. And I probably wouldn't blame him. He's going to go somewhere else, and then they're all starting from scratch. Who going to get Bill Belichick? Like, I think Bill Belichick's already said he wants to go to a younger team that's unproven. That sounds like Atlanta to me. Sounds like the Atlanta Falcons to me. But I mean, like there's other coaches that are out there. Jim Harbaugh's not going to go to Dallas because of the Jerry Jones is going to eliminate most of the candidates because he's going to want to still be the GM and have control of the team. Until that changes, this is what it's going to be. So I was ecstatic because I was actually at a birthday party watching this game, and the Cowboys fans in there. So me and some other Ravens fans were there. We were laughing the whole time. They got in their feelings. They were like, well, we got 5 championships and blah, blah, blah. I'm like, Y'all haven't won anything since the last Ravens championship can be viewed on DVD. The last Cowboys championship be viewed on VHS. That's what I said. Feelings got hurt. I mean,
yeah, man.
I got to get a converter to go watch you guys win the Super Bowl. I got to go dig in the reels at NFL Films to go find you guys winning the Super Bowl. Like, come on now. Come on. What was that next game? The Rams, Lions.
Good game.
That was the best game.
Yeah.
That was the best game of the weekend. It was back and forth. I don't know if there were any turnovers. I don't think there were any interceptions being thrown. But Puka Nacua had 181 yards. Monsaut St. Brown over had 100-some yards. It was just back and forth. Great game. The Lions held out to the end to win that football game. The winning at home in Detroit was a very, I think, a touching moment for just Detroit fans. A lot of them probably went there thinking, they've been burned before, this is going to happen this time. And they win, and you got to think with Dallas out, and now the Eagles are out of it as well. I mean, I think they play the Buccaneers, right? They play the Buccaneers this weekend. There's a real shot that they're going to probably be in the NFC Championship game. There's a real shot that they'll probably be in the NFC Championship game. Shout out to Dan Campbell. It's been 3 years in the making for them, and the GM there, building that team. He gave the game ball to the GM because he said they've been building this since then. What I will say is that that Detroit secondary is not good at all. They're lucky they got out of there with the win. They're lucky they got out of there with that win. With Baker and the way he's been throwing the ball this year, he's got 4,000 yards. Mike Evans still balling out. Like, I don't think that game is going to be. It may be similar as close as the Rams game, but I just think it gets a better passing team. I think all roads at the end of the day for the NFC end in San Francisco. Well, whoever gets there, their road is ending in San Francisco. So, but shout out to them. Look, if you're on the NFC side, you got the Packers are moving up. The Lions are now where they need to be in their rebuild stage, right? They're moving on. They're getting better. So you're happy about that. But obviously, overall, that was the most balanced game of the weekend. Best game to watch without being a blowout. So shout out to the Lions for winning that game. So
yeah, definitely hands down the best game of the weekend. It was exciting. It was back and forth. I think the Lions were favored in that game to win that, and but even still, I think a lot of people had the Rams. I mean, the Rams was an easy upset pick for a lot of people, and that Rams team is a good team as well. So every now and then I'll look for it, and I just be like, thank you for certain players that just won't be a part of this no more, because get Puka Nacua out of here. Like I do not want to see him in the Super Bowl if we make the Super Bowl. That is the last player.
Right.
I want to see him
181 yards. Yo, he was.
Yeah, he's a monster, and like he's been doing that all season. This was a breakout game as well, but like he's been pretty consistent. He's been pretty much balling every week. So yeah, get him out of there, because that him and Matt Stafford, like their connection is crazy, and Cooper Kupp, all of them, they get him out of there. But Rams, once again, they had a really, really good season. Nobody really had the Rams doing what they did this year. But with the emergence of Puka Nacua and having Kupp on the other side, it's like, that their offense was right back to kind of where it was in Super Bowl form, damn near, minus a few pieces. But yeah, the Lions, the Lions worry me, throughout the regular season, because consistency was the main thing. Obviously, we all. It's been a few years now where we thought the Lions were going to take that step, and they let us down. And this year, it seemed like they were trying to let us down again. Like, I think it kind of started with us when we beat them, the way that we beat them, and then they kind of were pretty inconsistent throughout. And they lost some big games, but then they won a couple big games as well. And in this playoff game, it was, like I said, it was back and forth. What I will say about Detroit going forward, though, like you said, I think all roads, it's going to stop for whoever it is in San Francisco. What I will say about Detroit moving on, Jared Goff is an amazing quarterback when he has zero pressure. When Jared Goff has any type of pressure, even if it's like a little bit of pressure, he's just off. He's just not the same QB at all. And I feel like anybody going against them, that really should be your only key of the game is to get pressure on Jared Goff, and then you'll be fine because he folds under pressure. He doesn't try to really escape tackles. If you get within, a foot of him, he's going to the ground. So, yeah, like shout out to them. Like I said, they still had, an excellent year for that franchise to get their first playoff win in God knows how long at home. Super special. I think I'm more excited for the coach than anybody. Like they showed the split screen Dan Campbell when he played for the Lions and he was like 0-16 or something.
Mm-hmm.
And then they showed his team this year and they're winning a playoff game. Like you can't beat that. So yeah, great game, back and forth. Not really anything bad to say about the Rams even though they lost. I mean, just a good even battle all the way. But the Lions had a little bit more firepower for them, and we'll see how they bear in the next round.
Yeah, I think this was a great game as well. I had the Rams winning this. I thought they'd be able to run the ball with Kyren a little more and be dominant there. But hats off to the Lions. They played a very balanced game. They spread the ball around. They ran the ball when they needed to. Amon-Ra St. Brown put up numbers again. Josh Reynolds was really solid. And I think the thing that really saved him is Aiden Hutchinson, man. He's a pass rush monster. So, the Lions made the plays that they needed to make. And the Rams just came up a little short. What I will say is, going forward, I think there is an opportunity for the Bucs to pull an upset this week. I'm sorry. That was a big game for the Lions in Detroit. And I see them like getting super amped for that game, emotions high, and they played hard off of those emotions. But in between the lines, they were outgained a lot.
Mm-hmm.
They were exposed a lot in the passing game. I think there's a big chance for a letdown this coming week against the Buccaneers. I think there's a potential the Buccaneers throw that ball all over the place on them. And then the Lions just don't show up in the same manner that they did against the Rams. I think it's totally possible. I'm not saying it's going to happen. That's not my prediction. But I think it's very possible for them to come down off of that high because 30 years winning a playoff game at home, the emotions of that and how high you are at that point, it can come crashing down real quick. So that's all I have to say about that game. Shout out to Detroit. Glad y'all won a playoff game.
Yeah, no, it's. I mean, you think about it. The Pistons have one of the worst records in basketball. So, but the Lions won a playoff game. It's a weird world we live in, right? Weird world we live in. But yeah, like you said, like I think that how bad that secondary is in Detroit right now. Like you think you said it last week on the show. Aaron Glenn is not that good, and it's like I said. They don't have to. The Buccaneers don't have to do a lot. It's one of those things where they got to kind of do like the Packers did. If they get up 2 scores on them early, I don't see how the Lions can make a comeback against them. Now they have the weapons. They got Ray St. Brown. They got Gibbs. Like they got. I think Laporta played, right? So I mean, they have the weapons. Can that defense hold up? That's the question. So last game to get to. Buccaneers beat the Eagles in the misery. They end their misery, going from 10-1 to finishing the season at 10-7. I don't know what to say about the Eagles, man. They also looked dejected. Like they played in great weather in Tampa. I think they said they had Lincoln Riley was there because it was Jalen Hurts and Baker were quarterback, and Lincoln Riley was the head coach there at Oklahoma when they were both there. So he was at the game, but I mean, I talked to my neighbor. He's of course a big Eagles fan. told me that AJ Brown scratched himself from the game. Like he was cleared by the doctor to play in that game, but did not want to play. So doctor said he could play. Doctor said you can play in the game. Apparently did not want to play in the game. And it showed too. The defense again reared its ugly head. They couldn't tackle anybody. It was a point in the game, I think, in the first half, though, the Buccaneers receivers were dropping the ball all over the place. I'm like, if they were just caught a few more of those footballs, this game would have been over by halftime. But the Eagles couldn't tackle. They just couldn't play defense. They couldn't run the football. Like I feel bad for Swift. Swift, like I think, had a few good games early on in the season for them, and they just forgot about him after that. They got so pressed about throwing the ball to A.J. Brown and trying to get him what was he averaging, 150 yards a game at one point up to like that 9 or 10 weeks. Each game had 100 and something yard, crazy stat. And they just couldn't run the football. And then we saw the tush push. Did not work. It did not work this time. They did it. They kicked the extra point. There was a penalty. They put it on the 1 yard line. They're like, all right, we're going to go for it. So the momentum the Eagles had at that point when they scored a touchdown, they finally got back into the football game, was all gone when the Buccaneers stopped that play. When the Buccaneers stopped that play on the 1, it was a wrap. Like the momentum just died. When they had kicked the field goal, the Eagles on the sideline were like they had got a second win, and they were like, all right, let's go win. We can win this football game. Whatever's happened, let's go win this football game. When the Buccaneers stopped their go-to play on the 1 yard line, the air just left that sideline again. It was also sad seeing Kelce on the sideline at the end of that game because he was like under his helmet. We could see like he had been talking about it for the last 2 years, and he had mentioned about retiring. I know a report came out like that night or the next day that he did retire. I'm not sure it's been confirmed. He hasn't filed paperwork just yet, as far as I know. He may be mulling trying to come back, but I think that's going to depend on what the Eagles do in the offseason and how this team looks. Like I said, Baker's quietly had a really good season. He's been playing in Tampa Bay, so no one's really cared, but he's had a pretty good season there. I'll say this, Mike Evans is quarterback proof, man. It don't matter who's throwing the football to him. It really doesn't. It really doesn't matter who's throwing the football to him. He's going to get his yards, man. He's going to do what he's going to do. But for the Eagles, there's something going on in that locker room. There's something going on in there because there's no reason that these players are playing as bad as they are. Like a lot of it wasn't the fact, like they have most of their guys. They lost a couple guys in the offseason, but they have mostly everybody. Like you had that defensive line that they had with Jalen Carter there, that they just brought in, and like you had all these players down to Kobe Dean. You brought in Kevin Byard. You had all these guys. And they fell apart. They fell apart. It just felt like, I don't know. I don't know if the coaching scheme, like I said, the coaching scheme was bad. It just with plays being called, but some of it was just fundamental stuff, situational football. The guys just not knowing where they're supposed to be, being out of place, stuff you don't even need a coach to tell you or scheme up. Like you just know where you need to be. And they got to do some soul searching in the offseason. I don't know if it's Nick Sirianni, if people just don't really like him. Because that's apparently the rumor going around, and a lot of the players just don't really like him. But they got to fix some stuff. And I'm waiting to see some report on Hurts, but when the season is officially over, him getting surgery on something because he had been playing Hurts since week 2 or week 3. Like there was a point where he was trying to scramble. He didn't look right. He did not look right at all. I think he's been playing through something to his detriment and his team detriment. But it was a mercy killing by the Buccaneers. They got their wings clipped, and the Bucs just go ahead and finished it. So to move on, to go play Detroit.
Yeah, this was a game. I kind of thought it was going to go. I had the Bucs winning. Actually, I thought the Eagles could probably still pull it out, but I had the Bucs winning this game. But for whatever reason, like you said, Jalen Hurts, I wouldn't be surprised if we find out that he's having some type of surgery or something like that, because like you said, he doesn't look right. He's been running super slow, super awkward. And I agree with you that play where I think was it a 2-point conversion when it took the
There was supposed to be two points. Yeah.
it didn't work. I was like, yeah, that was just kind of like an omen to what to what this was. It just wasn't right. The one good thing on offense was Devontae Smith. I mean, he played pretty much phenomenal in that game. Outside of that, so that's promising knowing that without AJ Brown, like he could kind of show up as a number one receiver type player. But yeah, just the organization is just a weird year. Like the AJ Brown stuff is weird. Like the them not being on the same page over this last several weeks, and the sideline spats and all of the above. Like it just isn't looking good, and it's just ironic that this comes on the heels of Jalen Hurts getting his money. Like he just got paid, and we've seen this before when a player gets paid and they kind of underperform the contract because maybe they're pressing, trying to prove their worth, prove the deal, prove that they earned the money. But I'm not necessarily saying that this was the case because, like I said, I do think that Jalen Hurts has been hindered for part of this year, and it just kind of showed up in his play. But if Jalen Hurts hasn't really been the best read quarterback. I mean, after his first read, he hasn't really been the greatest. I mean, he usually, if the first read open, that's where he's going with. He hasn't really been reading defenses that often. A lot of times he has a ton of time, and that's what he's kind of been benefiting off of over the last few years that he's successful. But this year it hasn't been the case. And on top of that, he can't really pull that team along because of how bad the defense is. Like, the defense has been playing atrocious. They can't stop the run. They can't stop the pass. They can't do anything on that side of the ball, especially with all the dogs they got up front. Like, you already named them off, and I don't even think we mentioned Jordan Davis and all of them. Like, Jalen Carter, Jordan Davis, Brandon Graham, like they did not do anything in that game. They just cannot stop the run. Like, teams have been running all over them, not just this game. Teams have been running all over them the last several weeks. In the secondary, it's just we see what happens. And they're missing tackles. They're missing crazy tackles on top of that. That play where was number 10 for the Bucks. I'm trying to think.
Godwin?
But that the last play, was it the last touchdown where the guy caught it?
Yeah, he ran it.
Three or four Eagle receivers, pretty much all he had to do was take the angles, knowing that you have help, and he just ran right through all of them and scored a touchdown. Like, that was kind of like, all right, they gave up. Like, this team has given up on whatever they were going for this year. They understood. It's kind of like they went in the game knowing that this is our last game. They didn't not look like they were playing to win that game from the beginning. So yeah, major disappointment for Philly. But to be honest, I think half of Philly had them losing this game. You can just tell the way they got into the playoffs. Like, losing that many games heading into the playoffs is just, you don't usually bounce back from that. I mean, Ravens did it long time ago. We limped into the playoffs and got to a Super Bowl, but that's not usually the criteria most of the times. And yeah, they just been missing a link. And then when they showed AJ Brown wherever he was, didn't look very injured at all. I'm like, yeah, it's over. I don't know what's happening there, but it's definitely not just the play that's affecting this team. It's definitely something else.
Yeah. I thought the Eagles might lose this game, but man, I didn't think it was going to be like this. I think a couple things I took from this. Eagles, they have no fight. The amount of missed tackles, I think it was up in the 20s, how many missed tackles they had in that game. And the one you spoke about on that touchdown was just probably captures like the whole feel of this team. They just have no fight. Jalen Hurts does not look like a guy. I understand injuries, but he hasn't looked like a guy all season.
Mm-hmm.
All right. This looks like Jalen Hurts before last year, more than last year. MVP Jalen Hurts, MVP candidate Jalen Hurts. I think well, let me get to the game. Bucks, great job. Baker Mayfield, shout out to you resurrecting your career. I mean, that man went to Tampa Bay, kept his mouth shut, got his swag back, and was throwing the ball all over the field. The Bucks are a sneaky team. They can't run the ball for anything. The defense is okay, but it's not great. I said it last week. The Eagles cannot do anything without tush pushing. All right. And they proved it. When they could not push the tush, they went downhill. All right. They couldn't brotherly shove anymore, so they went downhill after that. They couldn't score. But seriously, I think what this showed is like the coordinators had more to do with the Eagles' success than the head coach, than the quarterback. Shane Steichen with Jalen Hurts was a perfect mesh, and we saw what Jalen Hurts could be under Shane Steichen. You lose him, you see what Jalen Hurts can really be. Well, not what he can really be, what he really is. And that's a guy who can win you some regular season games, but he cannot carry you on his back. When things aren't going right, he cannot carry you. They were down A.J. Brown, and he could not get the ball to anybody else but Devontae Smith.
Yeah.
That's not elite quarterback. I'm sorry. Lamar hasn't had weapons, and he gets the balls to guys, but, we'll get off that tangent. But the Eagles, the play calling was abysmal on both sides of the ball. And that's all I got to say about the game. When we talk about the Eagles, Nick Sirianni is the problem with this team. Throughout this year, I read up this week, the players don't know who the offensive coordinator is. Like, who's calling the plays? Is it Brian Johnson or Nick Sirianni? Because throughout the game, Nick Sirianni is overruling Brian Johnson, like, significantly. And what it looks like is Brian Johnson has zero autonomy, and he's calling plays based upon Nick Sirianni's philosophy and not his feel for the game. So I think when you have a coach who is this micromanaging with his offensive coordinator and he's failing at it, he has to be to blame. And we see that he got carried by Shane Steichen and what was the defense coordinator's name? It's
Gannon.
Yeah. Without them, it's a whole different team. And it looks like the players are tuning him out because no player has come to defend him with all the rumors of him possibly getting fired. So that says a lot. I wouldn't be surprised if he is. If he comes back, he's going to probably have to hire a whole new coaching staff because what happened this year was of historical proportions, and it was just sad. So, man, the Eagles, you're abysmal. Glad to see you out the playoffs. Don't ever compare Jalen Hurts to Lamar Jackson ever again in your life. Go Ravens.
Yeah, and also just to sum that all up, I don't know if you guys saw the video of an Eagles fan throwing a bucket of popcorn on Nick Sirianni as he was walking out. Like, if that's not a Philly fan thing to do right there.
Typical Philly. Typical Philly.
That was a great just cherry on top for the Philadelphia Eagles. Just before we get to the Stephen A stuff, we got to also talk about the Steelers losing to the Bills in the playoffs. The Steelers weren't. The Steelers found a way. They mucked the game up. They do this every week. They've been doing it under Mike Tomlin. But when Josh Allen went on that 52-yard run, I was kind of like, all right, I don't think they're gonna win this game. And I said it last week. I was like, I see this game, Cook and Allen combining for close to 200 yards rushing. And that's how they're going to dominate this football game. Now, the Bills did have an issue with Jaylen Warren. They were doing a pretty good job of balling up Najee Harris. Najee Harris couldn't do much of anything. Jaylen Warren was doing outside rushing, and he was doing his thing. Deontay Johnson played well. Pickens played well in the game. Prior moves. But at the end of the day, it's still Mason Rudolph out there. And it just came down to the fact that, the Bills playing at home, they just come out of a blizzard or whatever it was. And I'm not saying they fixed the demons that they had from last year when they played the Bengals, at home. But beating a Steelers team that's always going to be, you know, uh, in the game. I also feel like T.J. Watt, if he was in this game, it definitely could have gone a different way. If T.J. Watt's in this game could have easily gone a different way, and the Steelers could be playing Baltimore right now in the divisional playoff game. But the Bills won. They got Diggs involved somewhat, still not much to my. Yeah, 7 catches, 52 yards. It looked a little slow out there. Diggs looked a little slow. Like he didn't look like he had that burst or anything. Kincaid looked pretty good. The tight end looked really good, but he didn't have that burst or whatever that he usually has, like in most games. And he was just kind of out there. And the Bills team doesn't. They beat the Steelers, but I'm not sitting here like terrified of the Bills, right? They're during that game, they had several of that part of that defense go down for injuries. They had like most of their starting linebackers, I think, got hurt. The secondary has been hurt all year. They've been having that problem for the last 2 years now. But I think definitely going into this next week's game where they got to play Kansas City and they got to worry about Travis Kelce, especially. Look, I think it could be definitely what the NFL wanted, right? They want Josh Allen versus Patrick Mahomes. This will be part 3. This is like part 3 for them, I think it is. So this is what they wanted. This is what they're going to get. Josh Allen's going to be Josh Allen. He's going to run the football. But I just think that defense for the Bills going up in this next week because they are so hurt. It's not. I don't think it's going to bode well for them. But good job knocking the Steelers out. Thanks helping us a lot. Helping us out a lot.
Yeah. I mean, not too much to say about this game. I mean, Bills, Steelers. We knew the Steelers weren't coming out with a win, especially mainly because there's no T.J. Watt and they're led by Mason Rudolph. I mean, there's really nothing else to say. If Josh Allen was going to lose to that, then that would be more of a story. But
right.
There was no chance that was happening in Buffalo in that game. And I mean, Buffalo was one of those things. I think I said it early in the year. A lot of people weren't concerned about Buffalo. I've always been a little bit concerned about Buffalo just because I don't know. They're just offensively, to me, they have enough weapons to dominate a game. And the fact that they've had some mediocre games as well. With Josh Allen, like, he can be inconsistent, but the times when he's on, like, it's kind of lights out. Like he, on the ground and through the air. So I'm not like concerned about them. I think the Chiefs game will be more telling as far as their place here in the playoffs. Obviously, that Steelers game was kind of like a warm up for them just to get ready for the Chiefs. It seems like, but I definitely one of the games that I will be like, okay. We got to buckle our chin straps for this one because obviously we will be playing them at home, so it'll be different if we do end up matching up with them. But yeah, I mean they did what I expected them to do against the Steelers. The Tomlin post game presser was hilarious. They asked him about his future and his contract, and he just walked off with the craziest look. A new meme was born, and I'm going to be using that one frequently. As much as we would love him to see him go, I do like Tomlin. I mean, Steelers rivalry aside, Tomlin, is one of the guys where if he's talking, like you want to listen to what he got to say, and no matter how we feel about the Steelers or their fans, I never had any type of animosity or competitive hatred against Tomlin. I think I think any player in the league would love to play for Mike Tomlin. It would be interesting to see him coach another team, but that remains to be seen. We'll see. I think he's going to come back to Pittsburgh, though. I don't think he's just going to leave, despite the rumors. He was kind of in the presser today. I'm not today this week, saying that report was bogus. So we'll most likely see him back, and I doubt that he wants to leave and then if he leaves, Harbaugh's guaranteed staying a couple more years just to catch up with his tenure. But yeah. Nothing really else to say, like I said, about that game. Steelers are home where they belong. And, I kind of rooting for the Steelers a little bit, because I kind of wanted to play them again just because, I just feel like we would just destroy them after those
All the
that last
talking they did. Yeah.
But it is what it is. We'll see them next year, and we got the prize is much bigger than the Steelers team who's just fighting to get to 500 the last few seasons.
Yeah. Bills did what they should have done. I mean, you're playing a team without their starting quarterback. Their starting quarterback was already below average. The backup quarterback is probably below average. And you're missing your best player, your best defender, who led the NFL in sacks again this year. Was that right? He did?
So.
Yeah.
So what do you expect? You should win.
Right.
But the Bills didn't look great in that second half.
Second half, no, yeah.
They caught up. It looked a little spooky there for a little while.
Yeah, it was getting scary, and then they scored that touchdown. So I'm not impressed by the win. You should have won. That shouldn't have ever gotten close. So I'm not totally impressed with the Bills. But like y'all said, like a Steelers team, a Mike Tomlin team is going to muck it up. They're going to be competitive in a game that they shouldn't be competitive in. So shout out to their effort. But Bills, yeah, you gotta do a little bit more. I mean, the stats show dominance. Josh Allen had a sick run, but essentially in this game, you did what you were supposed to do, and if you didn't, then we're having an Eagles conversation.
Right.
Yeah, I wanted to play the Steelers because I love rubbing it in the Steelers fans' face when we win. But look forward to who we got coming. And, as far as Mike Tomlin, I would love to see him in the NFC, coaching one of the teams over there. Or him, going back to college after his contract is up. I know he's coming back for 1 year. I would love to send him off with a farewell sweep. But yeah, he deserves better. I'll say that.
Yeah, I mean, historically you have a winning record every year, but 9-8, 10-7, whatever that is, and then being knocked out of the playoffs for the first round every year. You're stuck in limbo. You're just stuck in limbo. You're not moving. You're not getting better. You're not getting worse. You're just stuck kind of where you are. Steeler fans are all about winning championships and being, going to deep playoff runs. And I'm pretty sure that I know they love Tomlin and everything, but like I said, a lot of it from Pittsburgh Gazette and all those other stores, some of those other newspapers have already been saying that maybe it's time for Pittsburgh to move on from Tom and they get maybe some different coach in, the room. But yeah, Tom's still a head coach. I mean, hell of a head coach. And if he plays at the end of this, coach at the end of this contract, or they let him go, he'll get a job somewhere. He'll have no issue getting a job anywhere. It was Corey didn't mention. I forgot. It was Funny Diggs when he caught the football. Took a drink from one of the sideline bottles that the Steelers had. Yeah. Now I wouldn't have done it because somebody actually drink from that. Somebody put their mouth on it. I don't know whose bottle that was. I'm like,
they doing it on their own sideline anyway.
Yeah, that's true. Right, that's true. But yeah. Let's get to this real quick. So we all know we saw the stuff about Stephen A. on his podcast that mentioned Jason Whitlock and criticizing his story about going to Winston-Salem State and how he got there, and also saying that he was a plant by ESPN. For those who don't know, Jason Whitlock was a former journalist I think he was in Kansas City at one point and then got a gig at ESPN. He was actually responsible for The Undefeated, which was a sub journalistic team of ESPN that kind of ran more Afrocentric sports stories. Jamil Hill had commented on the fact that she at one point was got a call from Jason Whitlock while they were at ESPN together to work on on Undefeated, but said no. And then he asked several other prominent black writers and journalists at ESPN that he wanted them to work, and they said no because of he just wasn't a likable person. Then he heads to Fox Sports, has his own show. I forgot what it's called. I forgot what it's called. Speak Now, but I forgot what it was called when it first started. When he was on there with Marcellus Wiley, and he was basically, I'm gonna criticize every black athlete known to man. He's known for criticizing LeBron James, especially Colin Kaepernick during the when he was kneeling for all that stuff. And it was just kind of, it got to the point where it was just like, even I think at Fox Sports, I think he had a contract dispute, wanted more money, and they were just like, dude, you're not likable to really kind of carry your own show. We're not going to pay you anymore. So he ended up leaving, and then he went to Outkick with Clay Travis. And Clay Travis is a staunch right winger sportscaster or whatever. Has his own platform. He kicked him off. And that should let you know everything you need to know about Jason Whitlock. If Clay Travis kicks you off, especially if you on that ilk, and he kicked you off, people just don't like you. But now he's with the Blaze, Glenn Beck's outfit, and he's on there now. And he made a statement about Stephen A. He's made some statements before, but Stephen A. has kind of like let it pass or whatever. But I think when he attacked him about his memoir being fake and his stories being fake, him being a plant at ESPN, and for people that know Stephen A. has done the work in journalism in Philly, especially. Working his way up through the ranks and things like that to kind of get to his own show, and stuff he did with Skip Bayless, and kind of helping to recreate what is now First Take on his own and making his own thing. And Stephen A., called him a fat bastard, said he betrayed him. Like, it was, Stephen A. had enough. The sad part about, I think, sports media where it is today is that the fact that there is space for a black sportscaster, especially considering the landscape of black sports media in general, especially across these networks, is few and far between. A lot of times you'll find one black show. I guess Speak on FS1 is probably the most predominant one. It may be the only one now that I think about it on FS1. It's the Speak. And then it was with Jamel Hill and I think Michael, I can't remember his name now. Michael Smith. When they were on ESPN, it was gone now. They're both gone. For him to come out and to constantly disparage other black journalists on prominent networks that still have that, cachet to still have that, it was clear for me. It was clearly just an attention thing. Like he's only attacking them because he wants a reaction. He wants a response. So it helps bring his level up. It helps bring him up to that level because that's where he used to be. It also speaks of jealousy because he feels like he's where Stephen A. is right now. He wants to be flying on the private jets at the college football playoff national championship of Michael Jordan and Derek Jeter, in the skybox. And it just screams like he's just jealous. And now he's attacking the man's credentials, attacking his character. And I have yet to hear any sport athlete or commentator, and I think I even watched Gilbert Arenas' show, and even Rashard McCants. I can't remember the other. I think she plays WNBA basketball. Can't remember her name. She even said, "Oh yeah, he's a terrible human being. Like he's awful." And I don't say that about a lot of people. I don't hate a lot of people, but from what I've seen from him, he is an awful human being. He is awful, and while some people believe that you gave Jason Whitlock you gave him the platform by responding to it, there's only but so many times somebody can drag your name in the mud before you say something. At least where I come from. Like it's one of those things where if somebody's saying, like, they can say whatever about you and how they critique like how your style is or like on the show and stuff like that, that's one thing. But to criticize my life story and say I didn't get where I am because I didn't earn it and stuff, like, nah, man, you ain't gonna talk to me like that. Like I didn't earn getting here. Like, come on now. You just mad because you were here, you had an opportunity and you fumbled it. I didn't fumble it. So that's my take on the Stephen A. stuff.
Yeah, I watched his whole show on the Jason Whitlock situation. I mean, everything he said, it was nothing that he said that I was surprised by, honestly. I mean, before I even knew that they had smoke with each other, before I even knew that was kind of my feelings about him already, just watching what I did see of him on television. And I don't really I don't at all indulge in any of his content whatsoever, but there was like years ago, even when Lamar first came in the league, I remember he was sitting up there and he would give his takes on certain things, and it was kind of weird because we know all of the personalities who like don't believe in Lamar and stuff like that, like like Mad Dog or some of those guys like that, like, but that's your opinion. It's cool, but like every time Jason Whitlock gave certain opinions with sports takes and stuff like that, it was always like some type of undertone. Like it's just he's just living in 19 whatever, and he's kind of like Uncle Ruckus almost. Like it's like it gives Uncle Ruckus vibes, like the way he acts and the way he kind of the position that he holds, like other black people, especially black people who might be in positions who are doing better than he is.
Mm-hmm.
Or has more ahead of them than he does. He kind of like diminishes that, and he does that a lot. And I noticed that not even just with like Lamar, but just a lot of his takes. Even there's always some type of undertone that tells me that you're a fucking hater. Like it's just always something negative that he has to say, and his takes outside of sports. I try not to listen to much of it, but it is, and most of it is opinion. But I think, like you said, Miles, earlier, I think he has a purpose in a lot of the stuff that he spews out. A lot of it's probably for clicks and just to get his views up or whatever the case may be. But he's doing it at the expense of whoever he can, do it at the expense of. Like Stephen A. Smith, he's been going at Stephen A. Smith and making comments for a long time. So the fact that Stephen A. Smith finally said something, I rushed to that show because I'm like, oh no, he about to unload on him, because that is ridiculous. Like the fact that I'm surprised Stephen A. Smith didn't say something sooner, because he talks for a living. Like you would think if somebody says something, he shoots back at everybody else, but for whatever reason, he never said nothing back to Jason Whitlock up until recently. So yeah, I don't know. My whole take on it is I agree with everything that Stephen A. Smith said. I don't really have too much else to say, because like I said, I kind of like blacklisted him from my personal content that I view. So I don't see him on anything outside of when I first saw him on shows with other people, and every time he spoke, I just hated everything that came out of his mouth. So I don't absorb none of his content any further, but everything that Stephen A. Smith said, I mean, I'm not shocked or surprised whatsoever about what he said. And since then, a lot of everything that he said has been validated by everyone that he kind of mentioned in that monologue that he gave. So, yeah, I stand with the industry. Jason Whitlock is a piece of shit, indeed.
Fat bastard. Yeah, I'm with everything y'all said. Jason Whitlock has just been a terrible person as long as we've watched him on TV. From Colin Kaepernick to what he said about women, what he says about LeBron, what he says about anybody black. I mean, this guy is how we call Uncle Ruckus in full form. You know what I mean? He hates the color of his own skin. I can't think of enough bad things to say about him. I can't think of any good things to say about him, but I can think of a lot of bad things. And I think with this situation, Stephen A., I think the tipping point was, I think Stephen A. had said something about Shannon, and then Jason Whitlock was getting ready, threatening to expose Shannon for his time at Fox and what really went down. And then I think it led to him bringing up Stephen A.'s memoir, and then Stephen A. let loose on him because he was trying to say Stephen A. lied about his career in his memoir and lied about some other things. But, Whitlock is trying to be relevant. He is like the black version of your typical right-wing MAGA person who just says things for shock value, says things to get attention, says things to troll. But, all that ends up happening is we just hate him. We just hate him more. He's a failure at that. I think LeVar Ball said it best. The only thing that Jason Whitlock should ever comment on are snacks. Nothing else. So I'm glad Stephen A. let loose that tirade, because it was great to listen to, and then it was great to watch. And it was well deserved. You know, I wouldn't mind Jason Whitlock being banned from all media, all social platforms, and just being inaccessible. So that's my take on that.
Yeah, he's useless. Get him out of here.
Yeah, man. Only thing I want to see him on is a weight loss commercial, an ad for some Takis. That's about it.
Yeah, I don't even want to see him on that. I don't even want to see his face.
Yeah,
Let's get him all the way out of here.
yeah. He looks like the poster boy for hypertension in the face. Like,
I think Shaq had made a comment at one point about him. He said it was something like that. He was talking about his hat or something the way it worked. Like it was Shaq don't like him either. It's like it's really hard to be unliked by everybody in sports, right? It's hard.
Yeah.
Be unliked by everybody in sports. Like that's just that's his own thing. But on to the game we've been waiting for. It felt like it's been a month since we watched a Ravens game. It's been too long, but here we are. Temperature is supposed to be pretty cold, like in the 20s, maybe lower than that about game time. Probably be colder as the game goes on because it is a 4:30 game at Saturday against the Houston Texans. As far as the injury report concerned, it's not too bad. Marlon is on there with a calf. It has not practiced in 3 weeks. Doesn't appear like he's gonna be ready for this game. I think they said our Mark Andrews, who was working his way back, was a full participant today at practice. The other day, they say he was making leaping grabs. So, I mean, I don't expect him to play this weekend. I think they're going to be cautious with him. But at the same time, they don't need him to play this weekend either. The way this offense has been running without Andrews it's been okay. It's been fine. Like Likely we were waiting for Likely to step up. He stepped up. Kolar has even come in every now and then, especially, and made some plays. I'm glad to see that all the wide receivers are practicing. I think Zay was healthy, full participant today. He was on the injury report, but he was full participant today. Clowney was out, but he had an illness. Adolfo Owe had an ankle, but he was a full participant today as well. So for the most part, the Ravens, I think having that week off got everybody right. They're going to be ready for this game. Looks like Queen's not on the list, so I don't know I'm not sure what the shoulder thing looks like, but he's not on the injury report, so he should be good to go. We did see some reports of the last week or two. The Ravens have kind of been sticking to their regular schedule each week. Didn't sound like anybody left town. I think everybody stayed in town for practices and whatever that was entailing. They did say they had like an hour-long practice at the bank on Saturday. They did practice there at the stadium for a little bit. So I think which was what they didn't do in 2019. I think they took actually a break in 2019. So they said they were trying to remedy some things that they didn't do in 2019 to prepare for that Titans game that they ended up losing, because they know, look, we've seen versions where if you rest guys, you're going to lose the next week, versus if you don't rest guys, you win, and then it's flipped around. If you rest guys, you win. If you don't rest, you lose. So we've seen everything right at this point. But I think it's one of those things where it's about preparation. I think with the Ravens at this point, I don't think they can be any more prepared. It seems like the coaches are locked in. Roquan made a really dope statement today that I'll read here. They asked him, do you feel any pressure going in this matchup against the Texans? Roquan was like, pressure? I don't feel no pressure at all. But they say pressure makes diamonds, and it's a lot of guys in that locker room that like diamonds, so we're in the diamond making business. So I was like, we're gonna put some pressure on them. We gonna. I was like, let's go. That's what I'm talking about. And Roquan's had that energy all year round, and it hasn't stopped. And I just think the guys are ready. I think that the ones that were here in 2019, even look, the guys that were here in 2021, 2021, and 2022, losing to the Bengals and then losing to the Bills, and stuff like that. I think that they're quite aware of what's at stake here. They're like, it's been in our grasp for the last few years, and this is the time to take it now. This is the time to take it. The Chiefs are wounded. We beat, the Dolphins are like a lot of the top teams that we have to play are kind of out of it. if the Ravens are like, we're literally going to be 2 games away from a Super Bowl here, fellas. Like, we take care of business here, and then next week we take care of business against hopefully we play the Chiefs, and you're on to a Super Bowl. Take care of business. You're at home now, right? The fans, I will say, have been calling on the radio panicked because, and look, I agree. Look, I'm not saying I agree. I understand where they're coming from. We've been here before as Ravens fans, right? We've seen this happen before. We've seen as Ravens get a home game in the playoffs or whatever, they lose, or all emotions. We're all crying and stuff, and we're all upset. And I think we had this mindset of, well, I wish we went in there at 10-7, or barely got in there as a wild card team, and maybe we could have surprised some players, some people. And I think it's that because we've embraced that mindset so much, and that's since '96. But I think it's time for the Ravens with Lamar. You got potentially a 2-time MVP now, quarterback. You got an elite defense. You got an offense that, got a lot of good young players on there. When Keaton Mitchell gets back, you still got Zay Flowers, and you get something out of Odell. You got Isaiah Likely, Andrews, Kolar, and then you're going to get some. They're probably going to, because they're playing so well, be able to bring guys in the offseason as well. So you got some guys there now on both sides of the ball, young versus experience, all playing at a high level. And I think this time, because of the way they ended the season, they didn't limp into the playoffs, right? They didn't get the number 1 seed when they locked it up and then had bad games, or they just kind of looked off. They played dominant football all the way up until the wild card weekend where they were off. They've been playing dominant football every week. And even with Lamar and them not out there in that monsoon game against the Steelers, they still had a chance to win that game. They were still in that game playing. So I'm like, look, they're playing well, man. BK's playing well. I mean, I get everybody, right? Everybody, I think, is locked in. They're aware they can't have a letdown, right? They're aware they can't have a letdown. I think what's going to be the key for the Ravens in this game is if the Texans lose the toss or whatever and the Ravens get the win, I think it's going to be important to get that offense on the field first. Get that offense on the field first. If you can get some points out of that drive, hopefully 7, that's going to help set the tone for the rest of this game. I just think you don't want to give the Texans, if you can, the opportunity to come in this game and get ahead. And, the Ravens are going to, I think there's going to be a little bit of rust in maybe the first drive or whatever that may be. But I think that's the first time to knock it off. Now, there could be a situation the Ravens come out there. They've been out for 2 weeks, act like nothing happened. They've been rolling ever since. Nothing's changed. But I think the Ravens know their brand of football. I think we've seen enough wrinkles in this offense now the last few weeks, even with the same plays, throwing it to different people and things like that. The Ravens have – I anticipate they got some plays. I know Monk has got to have some plays. He's got some plays for the playoffs that he has not debuted yet. They're waiting for this time period. I guarantee there's some stuff in there because we saw it in that Dolphins game. We saw him in the Dolphins game. There's some plays in there that we haven't seen before. So I know he's got some plays in there. But I will also say that, this is a team they're familiar with already and playing in the Texans earlier in week 1. But it's DeMeco Ryans. He comes from the defense, the 49ers defense. They have played, you think about it, theoretically have played the 49ers almost will be 3 weeks. They played the 49ers and they beat them at home. He played Mike McDaniel and embraced the 49er offense and the Dolphins. And then you're coming back and playing the Texans again and DeMeco Ryans, and he's going to be pretty much running the 49er defense. You've been playing the 49ers for 3 straight weeks for pretty much their football games. So I think the Ravens are going to be prepared for this game. I think it also how Lamar comes out there, especially in that first drive, if he looks like the last few games, he's been the first 6 or 7 passes have been like 100%. Like, I don't think he's missed anything. They've been giving him these easy throws. They can get guys downfield, getting guys in open space, making plays. If they can run the football the way they usually do, get Likely involved early, Odell especially, get him involved making some plays. I think Odell's going to be the Anquan Bolden of this team for this playoff push, where he's not going to get a whole bunch of catches, but he's going to get a lot of important catches. That's how I'm going to look at it. He's not going to get the volume, but he's going to get those catches that matter. And I think that's what's going to be. He's going to be like the Bolden of this team this year. And as far as the Jacoby Jones, I think that's going to be Nelson. I think it'll be Nelson Aguilar. I think Nelson is revived his career here a little bit. He's had a couple drops here and there, but for the most part, he's been one of Lamar's favorite targets in Baltimore this year. And I think he could be that guy that kind of shows up in the playoffs. I think it's always those guys, or the unsung guys that show up. Jacoby Jones was that guy for the Ravens in the Super Bowl run. And I think for Nelson, Tylan Wallace, the Justice Hills, who's been playing well since Keaton got hurt, they're going to be the guys that really determine how this plays out. We know Zay's going to ball. We know likely is going to ball and Lamar's going to do his thing, but are the other guys going to show up for them as well? But I think the Ravens are prepared for this matchup. The Texans, playing an extra game, did get banged up a little bit in that Browns game, playing a tough defense. The Brandon Stevens is still out there. I trust him. Kyle Hamilton's playing. Roquan and P. Queen. The middle of that Ravens defense, best in football. I like the Ravens' chances in this game.
Yeah, I'm excited. I was getting excited just listening to that. I have no doubt that we'll be prepared. This is not the same old Ravens team. Like you said, 2019 was a different year, different scenario, different coach, different offensive coordinator. Everything was different about 2019. Lamar Jackson is 4 years better than he was in 2019. Mm-hmm. He's people forget, he might have even gotten to this point multiple times, but unfortunately he got hurt a couple of times as well and didn't get to finish out the year. But we here now, and he gets to go into a playoff divisional round at full power with an offense that's the best that he's had, best he's seen it since he's been in the NFL. It's not really that many keys to the game when you talk about the Ravens, because the way we've been playing the last couple of weeks is exactly the way we need to play going into this next game. We got to keep doing what we've been doing. Lamar has been taking control of his offense. He's been pretty much doing whatever he wants back there, and he's been making it look easy. If we can somehow maintain that and keep Lamar protected throughout the game, I don't see why the game goes any differently. Honestly, I don't see how it goes any differently. Excuse me. I feel like Zay is going to go off. I just got a feeling that he's going to go off. My man been chilling for a couple weeks now, and he just got back to practice. I think, he's going to ramp up and he's going to be good. If Andrews does play, I'm not opposed to having him play the game, but more so as a depth piece. Like, if we need him, cool, but just have him there just for depth. But I don't think he needs to start that game, even if he is ready. And likely he's been balling already, so it's not like it's necessarily needed, but it'll still be nice to have him out there just as a piece where, if we need to go that route, then we could if we just have the option. But that should be, that should – I don't really have any type of doubt that those guys are going to perform. And like you mentioned, Odell as well, another piece that I'm looking forward to in this playoffs, because it's like he's back in the playoffs. He's back in his opportunity. Like, we forget he's on our team now, but if you look back at the road that he's took just to get back on, just to sign with somebody again, like, it's been a long journey, and he's signed for this reason right here. So I think he's already well worth his money. Lamar came and signed and extended his deal, but now it's time for some more earning, and this is what he's here for. And I think we'll see less holding back from all of these guys, because obviously it's win or go home. So I don't think, like I said, as much that we need to do. I think a lot of what we need to do is just keep doing what we've been doing. Offensive line, if they can just do what they've been doing, I think that'll be huge for us. If they can just continue to protect Lamar and hopefully get this run game going as well, and Lamar can kind of just play action, make some plays, sky's the limit. Obviously, we're not playing, the Texans defense. I'm not really shook from the Texans defense, but like I said, they do have guys on that side of the field that can tackle. They usually make a little bit less mistakes when it comes to tackling, but I don't see why we can't do to the Texans what we did to the our previous opponents, especially going up against the best team in the NFC and one of the top teams in the AFC the last 3 weeks. So, yeah, I think it's Lamar's time. I think, we're seeing all these quarterbacks have great had great wild card opening weekends, like in Stroud and Jordan Love, and I don't see why Lamar doesn't do that. I mean, he's had great weeks leading up. We're just going into the playoffs so strong. It will be only a disappointment if they don't come out the way they've been doing the last several weeks. So yeah, I got no doubt on their preparation. I like that they did prepare as if there was going to be a game in their bye week, and they just kind of just went with the flow. They practiced outside today. The thing that was inside yesterday because the field was frozen over, but they got to practice outside, get a feel for the cold. I'm not concerned about the cold. If anything, that benefits us. Texans play inside, and they're coming to the elements this week. So, if anything, that should be something else in our favor. And I know the bank is going to be rocking this weekend. I actually thought about going to the game, but I'm a chill because I'm a little under the weather. But I know the bank is going to be rocking. The fans are going to be loud, and at the end of the day, he's been having a great year, but he's still a rookie. And, I think this is probably going to be his first playoff appearance is going to be when he comes to the bank. So we're going to see how that happens. But I got no doubt that the Ravens going to handle business this weekend.
Yeah. I'm glad we got this break. I think we needed the time to just heal. I mean, that's what this team needs. I mean, injuries have been our Achilles heel the past couple of years. I'm excited that Mark Andrews, it looks like he's trending to play. I think this game, we just have to come out with the fire. I think Corey said it best. Or was it Corey? No, it was your brother Keenan, Miles. He said the Ravens got to keep that same energy they've had since week 10. They got to bring it. They got to bring it every single play. I think it's a great opportunity to send a statement in the playoffs. I know we've been sending statements the latter half of the year, but kicking off the playoffs right, being physical with this Texan squad. This is a dome team. They're going to be in the cold. It's going to be like 20 degrees out there this weekend probably. I think it's a great time to send a message. Come out there, smack them in the mouth with Ravens football. And then offensively, I think we just got to set the tone. I like what Corey said, man. Let's keep Likely at number one. Let's not disrupt it and work Mark Andrews back in very slow. But I think first and foremost, man, let's run the ball. Let's run the ball. It's cold. Let's get Gus involved and then start to build off of that and get the ball out in space to Zay, to Odell, to Isaiah Likely. I think it's a perfect time and the perfect weather to really dominate with some physical Ravens football that we've come to know and love. I think the key to the game, first and foremost, is going to get pressure on CJ Stroud. Young QB, granted, the boy is on the verge of being elite, but what do we know about young QBs? They don't like pressure. So let's get in this face all game. I want to see Vinoy. I want to see Clowney. I want to see Mods. I want to see all of them just getting pressure on CJ Stroud all game. And I think the other way to really just lock this down and turn this game the other way is just make sure that Stevens is very physical with Nico Collins. It's another young guy. He's great. He's a deep threat. But I think if you're physical with them, you can definitely slow him down and neutralize him. And I think if we do that, this game isn't competitive much. So those are my keys to the game. I would love to see Dalvin. Corey, I see your message. I would love to see Dalvin get involved, but this may not be that game. It may not be. Depends on the flow of it. But I think physicality, pressure on CJ Stroud, we play our game, balance, lead with the run. And I forgot. I didn't mention my guy, Kyle Hamilton. I want to see him show up in the run game. I want to see him set the tone with the physicality in the run game. And hey, I want to see them use him as a pass rusher as well. I think that's going to be that would be big on CJ Stroud. But besides that, I want to see a full balanced game, play Ravens football, bring that energy. I don't want to see bye week Ravens. I want to see coming out the gate, smack them in the mouth Ravens. And I think if we do that, this will definitely be a nice victory for us. 4 o'clock 4:15, whatever the time is.
4:30.
4:30, 15 more minutes. All right, let's go.
Then they did say that they waived Melvin Gordon today, and so that opens up Dalvin Cook to be activated. I think there's three. They're at 50 players right now. They have 3 more spots left. That's assuming is going to. They said it possibly between Mark Andrews, Dalvin Cook, or Darius Washington, and Devin Duvernay. So they're gonna one of them's gonna be the odd man out. So not sure who's that gonna be. There is a possibility, I guess, if Andrews does play, if he's not out there as obviously the tight end one. I would anticipate they use him kind of as a decoy on certain plays. Like he's out there, so you got to pay attention to him. They may have him run a route just to draw coverage, away from a player they're actually trying to get the ball to. And that's not going to be every play. It could be if he's out there, it could be for certain plays. But if he's healthy, like don't get me wrong, now if he's healthy, he's out there, Lamar gets involved, and Mark Andrews does one of his angry man runs or something. Like I'm like, all right, like let's go, But I think that I think Todd Monken's done a really good job of utilizing everybody. I think in this offense, which we didn't see under Greg Roman. Like I said, we've seen Nelson get involved, we've seen Zay get involved, Odell, Kolar, likely. We saw Justice Hill get involved in the passing game as well. Again, having Dalvin Cook, I don't know what to expect from Dalvin Cook. I have no idea what to expect from him at all. I feel like as long as he doesn't fumble the football like Melvin does, that's already a +1 to me. Just don't fumble the football. But maybe being in the locker room with the other South Florida boys, man, like Lamar and Zay. Is likely from Florida. Is he? I went to Coastal Carolina. I don't know if he's from.
Go to like Stanford or something.
They went to Coastal. Likely went to Coastal Carolina.
Coastal Carolina. Yeah.
I'm not sure where he's, but they got a lot of guys from South Florida in that locker room. So hopefully, maybe that energizes him. And I'm not saying we're going to get Pro Bowl Dalvin Cook, but if he can give us 4 or 5 yards of carry, it's just something that we can rotate 3 running backs, give Gus a break every now and then when he needs to, and he can kind of just keep running that kind of football. Then I'm all for it. And I was looking at Slowick. Slowick is the OC for the Texans, and he was the passing game coordinator for the 49ers before he came there. So, again, like I said, they've been playing the 49ers for 3 straight weeks. So, I mean, it's the Ravens aren't going to see anything vastly different than what they've seen already. And like you said, Travis, I think that what the Ravens do better than anybody else provide, especially interior pressure. They can get pressure. If Matty B can continue to keep doing what he does, and then you get Queen, you get Roquan, and maybe the occasional nickel blitz from Kyle Hamilton, or maybe if Arthur Millette. I think Arthur Millette's going to be healthy. You get one of those occasional nickel blitzes and stuff, throw them off. Yeah, I think this game is well in hand for the Ravens. I'm not going to count anything against them. DeMeco Ryans has been a pretty good coach. Said C.J. Stroud's been playing really good football right now. Yeah, I just hope like the energy at the bank is going to be loud. It's going to be crazy. The fans are going to be loud. And to say, I think Lamar knows he's got that chip on his shoulder still. I think everybody's holding their response because I've seen all the shows this week talking about Josh Allen and the Chiefs game, the Bills and Chiefs, and they've been talking about the 49ers and everybody else but the Ravens. And I think everybody's kind of holding their talk for what happens after this game. And I think Lamar is aware of that no one's going to give Lamar his flowers right now because, Lamar, he knows behind the scenes that if he were to lose this game, they'd be immediately running to the studio on Monday. They call him trash and he's not this and that and all blah, blah, blah. So Lamar knows what's at stake. Lamar knows his legacy is at stake at this point. He saw what happened to Dak Prescott. You saw what happened. That everybody kept saying that was a legacy game for Dak, and he may have submitted himself as just another guy. And I think Lamar, this playoff run for him could cement his legacy is, it's 2 quarterbacks in this league and everybody else. It's Pat Mahomes and Lamar, and then there's everybody else. So Lamar knows it's at stake. And, but before we get out of here, what's the scores? What we got?
34-23 Ravens.
Okay.
Give them, I think they scored in the single digits the first time we played them.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Give them a few more points this go around. I don't even think it'll be that close, but I'll give them a couple garbage points at the end. But I wouldn't be surprised if this turns into something else. But 34-23 is my prediction.
I'm going 27-17. I'm gonna give them room to make it back into the game. I think we come out, we dominate early. Second half we let our foot off the pedal a little bit, and they put up some points. But I think we still handily win this game. It's gonna be a physical, balanced game. I think Gus goes over 100 this game. I don't think he's gone over this season. Could be wrong. But I think Gus is going to go over 100 this game, making a statement, 27-17.
I'm going to go 31-20 Ravens in this game. Yeah, I just think that it's got to be time, right? It's time. It's we've been here before through the last 3 years. Ian Lamar's first year as a starter. It's time for this team to take it to the next level. Bisciotti said that years ago, that it's time for this team. About I think when Lamar got drafted, he was like, it's time for this team to elevate itself to the echelon of not just being a playoff caliber team, but a Super Bowl contender when they talk about the Ravens every year. Like, it's time. It's time. It's time for us to get used to having bye weeks in the first round, having home playoff games, AFC championships. I think it's time to turn that corner for Baltimore. So, all right, that's it for us. All I ask for Harbaugh is, don't steal the yams today. This game, don't steal the yams, man.
Not steal the yams.
Don't steal. I feel like Jim's gonna be there. I feel like Jim's gonna be at the game because he's got nothing else better to do right now. I feel like Jim's gonna be at the game. So having that championship presence around John will be good. Now, he's won a national title, having that championship presence will be really good. But yeah, all Harbaugh has to do is just don't get in the way, man.
Yep.
Don't get in the way. Just let everybody do their thing. So, all right. Well, that's it for us. I'll catch you guys during the halftime from the hammock. Possibly going to an event around that time. So I'll have my tablet with me watching the game. Please I won't be interested in whatever's going on. I may have people around. I may have people around my tablet watching the game too. So I don't know. Right. But I will be tuned in. So hopefully Ravens pull this one out and we move on to the next round. So we'll catch you guys later. Peace.
Peace.
Blow their doors off.